You're...
She said cute. She thought I looked cute.
I'm not supposed to.
That's Mommy.
Let me think.
One of the first things that attracted me to Beth, when I drove up to her house, I remember that day and I got lost on the way. But I remember pulling into her driveway, and I didn't come to the house for one reason or another. She walked out. Maybe she'd been waiting for a while. I think I was considerably
like an
late.
hour.
The first thing that attracted me to Beth was her voice. In fact, this is kind of an interesting story because she called me up just to welcome me to town because we had a mutual friend and we were going to go out to dinner, and she had left a message for me on our voicemail, and I remember listening to that message a few different times and thinking, wow, she has a sweet voice. And I thought, I want to get to know this girl a little bit, and I liked her voice, and so that is the first thing that attracted me to her, because I heard her voice before I really knew who she was.
I liked your khaki shorts and your polos and your Birkenstocks. I thought you looked cute. I think the biggest thing was that I did think that you were nice looking. I liked the way that you looked in your clip-on glasses and your faux leopard.
I was on the leading edge of style.
Yeah, definitely.
In the late 90s.
Yeah.
You wouldn't dance with me on our first date. Mm-mm. And that was somewhat attractive, like in hindsight. You're a little bit guarded. So really guarded for the first several weeks, which was good. And that was, in hindsight, attractive. At the time, when you're calling me friend every time that we go out for the first several, not dates.
Not dates.
Right.
No.
When I desperately wanted them to be dates.
He was coming from this very, strict, background of no drinking, no smoking, nothing. And so as we would pass places, bars or something, I would tell him that I had been there just to get a reaction from him. And he did really well. He would be like, oh. And that night we passed this homeless man, and he took him into this bar, and he bought him a beer, which just to impress me.
It's the first beer I'd ever purchased.
Yeah, and it worked.
I think that's the only beer I've ever purchased for a homeless man.
Probably. Right. Yeah.
It's all for the lady.
The only thing I didn't like was that he was a pastor. I swore I would never, ever marry a youth pastor. And so I just, that was the one thing. But I kind of felt like, that God was obviously placing us together for a certain reason. Don't you remember this? Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had to ignore the fact that he was a pastor and be like, okay, let's just jump in and see what happens. And now it doesn't bother me, obviously, thankfully.
11 years later.
Yeah, and I enjoy it, and I don't feel like a pastor's wife as much as I just feel like Jed's wife. So the whole label side of things has kind of disappeared. I was difficult.
We're a bit of a challenge.
You said that night we were arguing, and I said something about how much we were fighting, and you said, well, maybe we need to break up.
Break it up. That was like 3 or 4 hours before I proposed to you.
Yeah, so surely you
were
were
those
concerned
moments.
about my emotional state.